So who here loves to breathe? I wonder if, yeah, I'm seeing some hands. I can still see a little strip with your faces. I love to breathe and I love noticing that out loud. It seems like, of course you do, and we get to take that for granted until we don't, until we don't get to take it for granted, right? And breathing is such a basic thing that becoming conscious of how we're breathing and our state, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit, can really help us be able to regulate. It can help our heart rate come down. So before I even get into like any teaching moments, I need to practice a little straw breath to kind of bring myself down. And I'm going to invite all of you to do it with me. So the way this happens is that you just take a regular inhale, and then your exhale is going to be as long and slow as you can make it, as if you're blowing out through a straw. So your mouth is probably going to get really like a little O, and just taking as long as you can to breathe the air out. So I'm going to do one. Feel free to join me. I'm inhaling. I'm going to do another one. Pop a yes into the chat or into the comments if you felt something shift inside of you. I noticed just a little bit of calmer in my chest, my heart rate slowing down a little bit. So this is something that we can practice anywhere, with other people in the middle of a meeting. No one needs to know. And I know some of you are here because your kids are your child or your children are pretty dysregulated sometimes, and it's hard for you to hold your own. So this can be something that we teach people we love too, especially if they're our kids, right? Straw breath. Okay. All right. So my name is Heidi Fischbach, for those of you that I'm just meeting tonight. And I help people feel at home in their bodies so that they can authentically connect with others and feel a sense of belonging in the world, wherever they are. And I've been helping people in this way for about 20 years now, first as a massage therapist and body worker, and now through nervous system coaching, in which I combine a powerful and science-backed music-based intervention that resets people's nervous system. And I combine that with training and education, similar to what you're getting a taste of tonight. And also deep one-on-one and sometimes group sessions where people, whatever they're bringing, can be met with deep presence and friendly curiosity. And all of this in order to bring about fundamental change in a person's nervous system. And I have this I have a lot of skin in this game because my nervous system was not always regulated, and I did not know the first thing about regulating my nervous system and calming myself in the middle of overwhelm. And as a child, I didn't feel safe. And it's not that my parents didn't love me. I know and I knew that they did. But I grew up in a strict evangelical Christian family in which my parents were missionaries in Chile, in South America. And their whole reason for being missionaries was in order to save the world from hell. This was their calling. So you can imagine that day in, day out, this was really big on their minds, on our minds as their kids. And if a person became saved according to their beliefs and the church that my parents were with, then they would go to heaven one day when they died. And otherwise, it was a lake of fire. So you can imagine the stakes were pretty high. So you were either saved or you weren't saved. And if you weren't saved, you were going to hell when you died. So with this belief system, there came also a really big mistrust in my body, in people's bodies, and of anything related to the world. So I was taught that my body was a slippery slope to sin, which would take me to hell. And I was constantly anxious and worried and looking over my shoulder. What am I doing wrong? What am I feeling wrong? What am I saying wrong? And when I was 11, I was sent to a residential school for children of missionaries in Ecuador. So 3,500 miles away from what I had known as home and from my classmates at school, from friends. And even though I was American, I had lived most of my life in Chile. That was home for me. So my level of homesickness at boarding school was enormous. Plus, it was an institutional setting. So I was one of 40 kids in a dorm. And not having a body and a self to trust or in which I belonged, the anxiety just got higher and higher. And as a way to cope, I developed an eating disorder. Food was familiar, and food was comfort. With my family and friends so far away, food also, it took the edge off of that anxiety. It allowed me, I don't know if anyone can relate to things that help you kind of numb out, and we'll get to that from a nervous system perspective. But food allowed me, and binging and then purging allowed me to take the edge off. At 17, after graduating from high school in this boarding school, I returned to the United States, a place I'd hardly ever lived in. And so that sense of displacement and of not belonging, not just in my body, but then also culturally, was just so, so intense and getting and increasing as well. And depression, suicidal depression, and the eating disorder just kept getting worse. And I started becoming curious about like therapy and about doing things that could help me. So there was some of that going on. But then in all of this, I met a man and we fell in love. And I felt more taken care of by him than I ever had, than I remembered ever having felt. And it just felt like, oh my God, this is going to help everything. This is going to solve all my problems. In a way, this felt safe. This felt like salvation. I no longer believed the way that I had grown up. And that also was a big shift in what was happening. So I thought, okay, if he and I can make a family, if I, get to have a family I get to take for granted, and I'm right in the middle of it, everything's going to be okay. But my extreme anxiety kicked back in, and my body actually was giving me signals that the relationship wasn't right for me. And after what were probably many weeks, if not months, of waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to sleep because I was feeling like it wasn't right for me. And it was the safest thing I had ever felt. I actually broke off the engagement, and it was heartbreaking, and it was right. There was a way in which it felt right in my body, but it was heartbreaking. And I realized, like, it just marked a realization for me that no one person could save me. Something deep inside of me needed healing. And I began turning toward my body, that thing that I'd mistrusted and thought such negative things about. And I began that journey of healing I started training to become a body worker. And I learned about anatomy, physiology, nervous systems. And I also found mentors and I hired teachers whose way of working with people was body based. And they taught me how to honor the wisdom and listen for the wisdom in my body so that some of those old traumas could begin to heal. And lastly, I underwent a scientifically backed music based intervention that I mentioned at the beginning. And it allowed where there had been just anxiety all the time for there to start being playfulness and curiosity and friendliness. And even in situations that had once been really, really stressful. So I no longer am afraid of hell. I just want to let you know it feels like a huge relief, like just kind of remembering how intense that used to be. And I have this very real sense that heaven is a moment by moment thing that I can experience here in this life, in this body, and that connection and warmth with other people and enjoyment of things that weren't possible for me when I was anxious all the time. Heaven is gets to happen every day. I don't have to wait until I die. And the other thing that has been able to happen for me is that I met a man and we fell in love, and he wasn't going to save me. And yeah, we're both perfectly imperfect or imperfectly perfect, whatever it is. And we get to be our own people in this relationship and also deeply connected. So that has been another really, really healing thing that has been able to happen from my turning toward myself and learning body based ways of healing and, yeah, nervous system resetting. So today I have dedicated my life's work to helping people transform their nervous systems and to helping people like you shift from patterns of anxiety and overwhelm and shutdown, shift in fundamental ways so that you can connect with people that you love, so that you can feel connected to a life purpose, and so that you, even in the midst of so much heartbreak happening in the world, and this time of year, when it seems like the stakes feel higher for everything, and we have higher expectations about feeling connected and love and in certain ways, that even in the midst of that, there's a way to have a center and find calm within yourself. And that calm is contagious. It has a way of spreading, just like stress is contagious. So, um, yeah, I just am wondering. I'm wondering what it is that made you want to sign up and register for a class that's about calm and overwhelm, being able to bring calm and regulation to overwhelming situations. And maybe you're in school. Maybe there's just so much pressure from classes and from like social pressure and your anxiety. Maybe you get relief from anxiety by going into depression and shutdown, and then you come out of depression by getting anxious. Maybe you're a parent struggling with a kid who has a very like dysregulated nervous system, and it's hard for you to hold your own with this little creature that you love and want to take care of, but it's just so easy to get pulled into their stress level. And maybe you already have a sense that your work needs to happen at a very deep level inside yourself. And maybe you have an awesome therapist, and yet your nervous system and patterns from a long time ago aren't allowing you to take in this really good help. So I'm hoping that you're going to stick around. I would love to know a little bit more about your specific want from understanding your nervous system and from learning 3 keys to find calm and get back to calm. So feel free to pop those into the chat. Just give me a little thumbs up or a yes in the chat if maybe some part of what I said resonated for you and you found yourself maybe in my story or in some of the examples that I gave. All
Heidi,
right.
a few people did put in the chat already some of the specifics. Yeah,
Great. Can you
yeah,
read a few of those, Amy?
sure, sure. Emma said, I would like to feel calmer when my father gets on my nerves, especially with the holidays coming up. Very relatable.
Yep.
Nancy, my health leads me to enormous attacks of anxiety.
Mm, yeah.
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 And Ellie says, feeling calm while surrounded by and conversing with lots of people.
Yes. Yes. Pop a link into the chat if you can relate to having this be related to health concerns, having it be related to social interactions. Yeah. Yep. I see that, Marta. Thank you. Very relatable. Yeah. I'm going to be telling you a little bit more about Enid later in the class, but I love something she said to me actually in this morning, and she's done my nervous system reset program, and she said that she now knows herself and she feels like in the past she didn't want to have interactions with people, and she said for the longest time I felt lonely in my self protection, like some of those kind of the armoring we put around ourselves, right? Maybe the persona we think we need to have so that people will like us. It can get in the way of actually really connecting with people. Yeah. And she feels the change has been just so lovely to see, like how she feels just like the world is a friendlier place. So it's not that we had to force or we had to make her start going up to strangers and talking to them, but she's in a completely new place and she's finding herself easily talking with strangers. And that just feels so empowering for her. So I got a little bit ahead of myself, but this is just to offer you like just a sense of possibility for the kind of things that can shift when our nervous system is able to get regulated. Okay. Thank you for reading those. I see your thumbs up, Jessica. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you because I'd like to show you um, a few slides that I'm hoping. How many people it helps to see things and hear things at the same time? Like just pop a yes in the chat if you're like, if those two ways of learning together can help you understand things. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Sometimes just auditory is like, whew, for me. So seeing it, and then feel free also to be scribbling notes if you need to. Yeah. Okay. Let me pull up that the slides. I hope you can all see this slide. Calm the overwhelm. 3 keys to calm your nervous system. Yeah. So today we're going to go over, you're going to learn the number one requirement for feeling calm, a powerful secret to presence and connection. And I want you to leave with a plan for successfully getting back to calm when you get triggered. But first, I want to introduce a science-backed body-based framework to understand the interface that connects and plays a vital role in every aspect of your health and well-being. Every aspect, physical, emotional, mental, relational. Our nervous system is that kind of network that connects all of those. So this lens is called polyvagal theory, and Dr. Stephen Porges is a neuroscientist that has been working on this for decades, and there are many other scientists now who have joined him, and it is a theory. And being a scientist, and this being science, it's a theory that welcomes other scientists asking questions about it and testing it. And there are a lot of science journals and peer-reviewed journals that have articles about this. So I'm going to give you the recap of this because it is such a powerful way to reframe all the things that we often stigmatize about ourselves and the things that we say, what's wrong with you for being that way? So there are three nervous system states. And the oldest one, and to give you an idea of how old, 500 million years old. And this is called dorsal vagal. And this in this state, a creature will become immobilized. And this is usually in response to like life-threatening situation. If you think of an animal playing dead, that's a similar thing. So immobilizing in the face of threat. The next nervous system state to develop is called sympathetic. You may have heard of fight or flight. So it's also very old. They're all old. But this one developed after that shutdown state. And in this one, we fight or we run away. And then the most recent one to develop, and the one that all of us mammals share, is called ventral vagal. And in this state, we find a sense of safety by being engaged, connected, and relating. And regulating always happens first from co-regulation, from regulating with someone else. Ideally, as babies, we got that with our caretakers. And I just want to put a stake in the ground for those of us who did not have the most solid co-regulation as kids, because our nervous systems are plastic, which means they can change, they can mold, and they can grow. So to give you some examples, and I hope that as you're seeing these slides, that you can find yourself in some of these postures and some of the examples that I give. So in that oldest nervous system state, you might feel, it might on the outside look like you're very inhibited and withdrawn, collapsed, like your shoulders may be rolled forward. Your digestion might be really unhealthy. You can understand that if we're feeling threatened and so stressed out that we're like freezing and shutting down, that our digestion would be totally out of whack. It might look like pulling the covers over your head, averting eye contact. And on the inside of yourself, maybe other people don't see this, but you have thoughts like, I give up, I can't, it's too much. Like overwhelm can really put us, if we don't notice, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but overwhelm can actually send us into a state of collapse and shutting down. I want to show you some examples of the sympathetic state, fight or flight. And in this state, you mobilize, like dorsal vagal was about immobilizing in reaction to stress and threat. This one is all about getting mobilized. There's a lot of energy in this one. It can sound a lot like blaming and criticism, blaming others. It's hard to relax when we're in this state. My nervous system growing up was probably in sympathetic a lot of the time, anxious. And then with the eating disorder, it like the eating would numb me and it would help me shut down. It was like the best rest I could get when there wasn't regulation. So we maybe on the outside look very fidgety, always on the go. This nervous system state may, like in a conversation, when a person sounds really defensive, they're probably in this sympathetic state. Yeah, with kids, with parents, as parents, we might find ourselves saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to, or we may want to say that, right? We may be thinking or saying, he should do this. Why is he doing that? Right? And then in the ventral vagal state where we feel safe and engaged, there's a sense of curiosity that's available to us, connection. In relationally, we might say something like, I wonder what that's like for you. What's it like being you right now? What's it like to be you in the world these days? There's a lot of co-regulation happening in these figures with a dog here, with a cat. There's playfulness with children, with others. Our digestion is good and regular in this nervous system state, right? Our immune system is working well. So feel free to pop into the chat. Let me go back a little bit. Actually, I'll stay right here. But as you're like finding yourself in things I'm saying or in the illustrations of what the different states are, maybe just popping into the chat, recognizing being in a certain state today, even. And just to let you know that we can be in different states in a day. We might have started feeling really safe and connected, and then a conversation might have put us in sympathetic. So this is not about any of these states being wrong or bad. In fact, I'm going to say at this point that I'm speaking a little bit off of the slide right now, not pertinent to this slide, just so that you're not looking for a segue, but dysregulation keeps us alive. So the point isn't to be regulated and calm and connected 100% of the time. But the point is that we need to recognize when it's happening and be able to find our way back. And I just realized I got a little bit ahead of myself. So let me come back to the slide. There's a reason I'm using these. So the number one requirement for feeling calm and engaged and centered is a sense of safety. So feeling safe isn't a thinky thing. It's not cognitive, rational. It's not something we talk ourselves into. Feeling safe is an embodied experience. Yeah. So this man and this dog, both of whom are very dear to me, um, they are not thinking, I'm sure they're not thinking, I need to feel safe right now, or even I am safe right now. Their body is feeling safe, right? Connected, safe. And the good news is, like I said a minute ago, it's not about always feeling safe or never feeling triggered or dysregulated. It is about recognizing you've gotten triggered, that you've lost your sense of safety and calm, and then knowing how to find your way back to a sense of embodied safety and calm. I just want to be sure that could one of my wing women record? I think I forgot to press record again. All right.
I'll do it.
It's recording. It says recording. Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. I didn't see that. Okay. So just like when you're looking at a map and you have no idea where you are on the map, it's really hard to get where you want to go. So being able to identify what state you are in is really key to being able to get to where you want to go, to being able to get to calm, centered, engaged, right? It's like finding the you are here on a map. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to leave this slide up a little bit and see if you can find yourself, or see if you can find someone you interacted with today in one of these states, or maybe in several, right? It can be like going from one to the other. Some days we may feel really anchored in ventral vagal and safety and connection. And some days that maybe feel a little harder. All right. So the number two key that I want to go over today is a powerful secret to presence and connection. And that is friendly awareness. And the key word here is friendly, because I'm thinking back on all of those years growing up when I was so anxious, hypervigilant, really, like what did I do wrong? What's wrong? And, in stress, that's still my sort of go-to nervous system state, sympathetic, anxious. So I had a lot of awareness. I could tell you exactly what was wrong in a room, in a situation, a lot of awareness. And it wasn't until I started learning to introduce friendliness into that noticing that things began to shift. So bringing moments of triggering into friendly awareness increases your embodied sense of safety. And I like to call this finding your no wonder. So instead of like, what's wrong with me or what's wrong with you, finding the no wonder. No wonder you were so anxious at boarding school. No wonder. No wonder you turned to food. No wonder you lost it with your kid today. No wonder. Right? Yeah. That shift from what's wrong with me to no wonder is really critical. And one day I think I'll do a class on other people, nervous systems as it relates to other people. But all of this applies to other people as well. And like one of my clients was recently saying, it helps her so much to be aware of other people's nervous system states. It takes out the like taking personally, how we can often do that when we're dysregulated, right? Or feeling insecure. And we have a sense of no wonder for them. Okay, so the number three key is something I want to be sure that you leave with today is a plan for getting back to calm and connected when you lose it. Not if you lose it, when you lose it, because we all lose it sometimes. So let's just normalize that as part of the experience of being human, of being a creature, right, in a body with a nervous system. So what does safe and relaxed feel like in your body? What does it feel like when you're feeling calm, centered? Maybe pop some things that come to mind that you notice. And maybe even as you're looking at this man and this dog, and you're feeling kind of what they're feeling, notice what that is. Notice it consciously, maybe pop it into the chat. So we have gone over the number one requirement for feeling calm, an embodied sense of safety. A powerful secret to presence and connection is not just awareness, but friendly awareness and that sense of no wonder and a practice of no wonder. And then a plan for getting back to calm for when you lose it. So, my friends, I want you to feel free to snap a screenshot or take a picture of this if you think it'll help you later. So, I'm going to break down what we've gone over into 5 steps. And the first one is noticing that you got triggered. Notice you've lost it. This is key. It's like, yeah, it's key. Until we notice, we're just on automatic pilot, right? And then getting curious in a friendly way. What are the cues that let you know you're not feeling calm? Did your heart rate go up like mine did when I realized I wasn't going to be able to share my screen with you? Did you jump down someone's throat or want to? Did you start biting your nails or pacing? All of these things, that we do when we're dysregulated. What happens? Get curious. And then identify your state. Where are you? Find the you are here on the nervous system map so that you can get back to feeling centered and calm, so that you're not at the mercy of the overwhelm, right? And then try one thing. What one thing can you do? And I'm going to point you in a direction, and this would be like for another whole class, but I'm going to point you in a direction for both the shutdown state and for the sympathetic fight flight state of the kinds of things that you can do. So when you're freezing, shutting down, collapsing, maybe you're hiding in bed, maybe you're like under the covers. The way to start moving out of that is to move. You see a little play button here. Move, express, create, even something as simple as looking up and around can start to bring you out of a shutdown. If you're in the fight or flight sympathetic state, pausing and resting, be feeling the ground can help you, maybe taking a straw breath. Actually, a breath would be good for either one of these states. And then the last thing, I love this one. In fact, I love it so much that I have this right here. Give yourself a big wahoo. You just took a giant step toward calm. And even if you don't feel 100% there yet, practice friendliness with yourself, a pat on the back, and celebrating that step you took in the direction of calm for you, right? We can't really pass it on to the people around us in our families, our coworkers, when we don't have it. So most of all, for you, and because calm and centered is contagious for the people around you. And I even think of this work as something like a movement, something that we can do for our world. Because just listening to the news can kind of let us know, if we think of like, what nervous system state is this group of people in? What nervous system state is this group of people in, right? So being able to get yourself back to calm, connected, centered is something you do not just for yourself, but for everybody. For your father at the dining room table, someone, whoever's example that was, right? Yeah. A lot of people are experiencing stress about upcoming holiday meals. Yeah. So I want to stop the share for a moment, the screen share for a moment. Nice to see you. Yeah. And I wonder if there are any me too's in the chat about, or nervous system states that people could relate to or found themselves in. Maybe Amy or Kim can read those.
Yeah, Constance says relaxed, at ease, content, curious, open, peaceful.
Nice. That sounds like ventral vagal.
Yeah.
Nice. That's,
And Martha says it feels amazing when there, but more often it feels miles away.
yeah, who can relate? Who can relate? Just either say yes in the chat so that Marta can see she's not alone. I totally relate. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Okay. I would like to, we're almost at the top of the hour, and I want to be sure to tell you about a client of mine, just to give you a sense of possibility of what can happen when our nervous system shifts so that it can more easily go back to safe and connected. I want to tell you about my client, Casey. And Casey was really struggling with even wanting to get out of bed when we started working together, when she started her nervous system reset with me. She was depressed and she hadn't done anything socially for a long time. And she was concerned about her relationship. The only person she was really interacting with was her partner, and she was concerned about the weight that this state was putting on the relationship. And we started working together. And one of the things that her depression looked like was back pain. A lot of times our bodies express for us what otherwise doesn't have expression. And she, because it was affecting her sense of balance, was even afraid to go and walk around the block. Now, this might sound really extreme to you, but just when you think about the kinds of things that our physical states and our pain in our bodies, and our even our digestion, what it keeps us from being able to do freely, I think we can relate. And as Casey's nervous system started changing, she was able to walk around the block, not only walk around the block, she also started being able to have the consciousness of wanting to do the physical therapy exercises. So I didn't even realize she had a physical therapist when we started working together. And as her nervous system started changing, she was able to take advantage of the physical therapy. And by the end of working together, she was riding her scooter around the city that she lives in. So not just walking around the block, but actually riding a scooter around the city and planning weekends, social weekends away. It was a huge change. And it feels dramatic when I tell you at the beginning and at the end. And it was lovely, though, to see like the little ways in which things shifted. Like a few weeks into working together, her partner said to her, I don't know what you're doing in that nervous system program. I don't really get it, but whatever it is, keep doing it. You seem happier. And that just kept increasing. And my client Enid, who I mentioned at the beginning of the class, I kind of gave you a taste for that, uh, comes from and I have permission from both of these clients to share their stories. They were very happy if it could help someone else. Um, but at the beginning of working together, like she comes from a lot of trauma, she and her husband both. And they went through a huge change that involved moving across the country in the last few months, a lot of transition, a lot of situations, very, can be very triggering and stressful. They ended up visiting family of origin where there was a history of trauma and of difficulty and estrangement and disconnection for many years. And she had changed in such a fundamental way that she was able to connect and see things differently and able to hold her own. And even though, she wouldn't want to live there and she's grateful for, having her own place in the world and having been able to move on, the love that she felt for her family members was able to have a place to go, right? It was able to look and feel like actual connection and like a repair happening, not because she was like trying to repair things, but because she had shifted in such a way that she was able to be different and take in other people differently. She was talking this morning, just this morning actually, about how empowered she feels. Um, and yeah, I mentioned those two examples, and there are many others. And I mentioned them because I want to give you a sense of the way in which working with and resetting your nervous system can actually affect everything, and actually ends up affecting you in ways that you didn't even realize needed changing or were possible to change. So I'm going to have Kim or Amy pop a link into the chat, because I would love for you to take me up on the opportunity of talking with me privately, in a free one-on-one session to talk about maybe your biggest nervous system challenge. What gets in the way of you being able to feel calm and connected, of being able to hold your own, of being able to of being social with other people, of having connection with your kids or with other peers, or maybe it's your work situation, right? Yeah, we all have our nervous systems running all the time at work, and so do other people. And that's also one of the ways in which people really observe things changing for them. So feel free to like either point your camera at the little QR code there, or click on the link that Amy and Kim are popping into the chat. And I'm just going to bring up, this is something Tanya said just after having that one-on-one session, um, the Calm You breakthrough with me. And she wrote me an email the next day, and she said that she was able to sleep through the whole night and have ample deep sleep. And it felt like a miracle for her. And that was just after that one-on-one meeting that we had. And another client who went through my nervous system reset talked about feeling like a new person. This sounds like Enid too, but this is Eve, walking around with a smile on her face. And she, when we started working together, one of her most difficult things was how reactive she felt all the time. And another client I've been working with described it as feeling at an 11 all the time, reactively, right? And this other person, not Eve, but someone else, just said to me a few days ago that it's been like 2 weeks now where she feels so calm, and it's not a fluke. She said, I felt 100% skeptical when we started working together that this could help. And I also felt 100% willing. So you don't even have to believe that you'll be able to change, but just that willingness and that desire for things to shift. That's what's necessary. And then this was a text that I got from Martha, and doing this work helped her with her PMS. It helped her with belly aches. And this is my favorite. She found herself dancing in the kitchen with her partner and her cats. And she said, Heidi, I don't dance. It's crazy. So that was a wonderful like thing that was possible for her, that she never mentioned when we started, that was something she wanted from having her nervous system working well. And then Tammy, who's a mom of a teenager. I think there might be some moms of, I know at least one mom of a teenager here. And her kid called her, she said, he calls me controlling, and he's right. And you can understand, right? When you're in a nervous system state of sympathetic and anxious, how that can look to other people like controlling, right? And it can feel that way too. Like it's really hard to stay out of their business. And you can imagine that when we don't feel safe within ourselves, it's easier to go in that direction for trying to find safety. And I love this. Like, this testimonial is what her kids said to her: Mom, you're being so normal. What are you doing? So I mentioned those as examples of what can happen. And I think that our Facebook, oh, it is still streaming into Facebook. Okay. So I'm actually going to close the Facebook live stream. So any of you who are in Facebook, feel free to pop comments into there. I'm going to be popping in there later to make sure that you have this link for the to schedule the one-on-one session with me, and just to respond to any questions you might have. But I'm going to be closing down that streaming just so that we can have a private space here for everyone who's here in Zoom. And let me do that. Great. And I'm going to stop the recording. Okay.